to Life podcast. We got some of the OGs here, Kyle Draper and Ryan Vieaux. Ryan, I know you're on this side of the seat a few months ago, but now
Yeah, I was
we're
gonna say that logo looks familiar.
yeah, right. So I stole your logo.
Love it.
My dress is just I'm here live in New Orleans, about to head out to the parades afterwards for Mardi Gras, so figured I'd come
Come
festive
on.
on the call.
I'm glad you kept your shirt on for us.
We're in the family-friendly section of the Mardi Gras stuff. But we're here to talk about the Rethink Everything. There's another book, Rethink Everything You Know About Home Buying, more of a consumer focus. But I want to start just by maybe Kyle starting with you. Did you ever think this Rethink concept would already have this much traction and going? I mean, it has a life of its own.
If I tried to tell you I did, none of my friends wouldn't think that I was smart enough to have thought that far ahead. And so I'm still shocked that Brian and I were able to pull off the Green Book.
Yeah.
Right, which was now actually we've just released 11 and 12 since we've released the 10th book, which is the one we're talking about. So I'm still blown away that Brian and I figured that out, mostly because of Brian. But this is wild. And we've got some really cool books coming out in 2026. And as long as people keep wanting them, we're going to keep figuring out how to do them.
Is it just been like organic in terms of like, hey, this is cool, I have another idea and coming to you, or are you guys coming up with these ideas yourself?
100% organic. I have not. I don't have a list of the next 50 books I want to do. We just, people find out about it, they reach out, they're like, man, I've got an idea, and if it's good, we run with it. And we don't know what we're doing, right? That's the secret. But we're figuring it out and we're having fun. We're getting better every time. And hopefully with the book we're talking about today, this book will be an incredible catalyst to putting people into home ownership, beginning to build wealth. And so it's an honor to just play a tiny little role in the impact that these books are having.
Yeah, what I would share from a perspective of being part of the Green Book early on, right? And then being asked to write a chapter in this Blue Book that we'll talk about. The process around the Rethink franchise is definitely maturing. I know Kyle wouldn't agree that it's mature yet, but it's maturing, right? And there's always going to be improvements. But like when we did the Green Book, Kyle had done his Rethink Everything You Know About Social Media, the Purple Book, right? And that was a solo project. And I don't know, you had a team member that kind of published it, but that it was outside of any known process, right? You just figured it out.
Yep.
And so when we did the Green Book and, started with 10 chapters, it seemed doable. And all of a sudden the thing blew up to, I think we ended up with 37 chapters, right? And there was no process. Like, how do you manage 37 contributors? It's like herding cats and getting their chapters and editing and doing the images and the QR codes and all the stuff that goes into it. And then like Kyle and I had to figure out on the fly how to, we should have an agreement that these contributors execute, right? All the stuff. And so when I just did this, was asked to participate in the Blue Book here as a contributor now on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, these guys figured it out. Like,
yes,
from like an hour when I was asked and I said yes, which took like 10 seconds to say yes. I had a contract to sign, and they clearly sent over like, here's what we want you to write about. Here's the deadline, all the stuff, right? And it was just like boom, 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 boom. So, I think what's happening is I'd like to think that our Green Book, propelled some of the other books that
100%.
that have been published, but Kyle and I also did a lot of work on promoting that Green Book and getting the 37 contributors all to promote it to their network. So it's turned into this its own bigger, it's not little anymore, its own big community of people that are touching all the different books that you see over Kyle's shoulders.
Can I add something real quick? We are launching our first audio book for the Rethink series in the next week, which I'm super excited about, because that has been quite the uphill battle to get everybody to record their chapter in their own voice and then put it all together. And so audiobook of Rethink Everything.
Oh, that's cool.
coming
So each author's reading
soon.
their own chapter, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
what I love about the Rethink books is you can kind of pick them up and they're easy to read front to back, but like you can still just pick and choose chapters a la carte, and they're very impactful because you're hearing from industry leaders. And so like
Yeah.
the green book I've read all the way through. I'm not quite through this purple book here, if that's what we're calling it, but the home buying book.
Blue.
Okay.
The blue, oh sorry, blue book. But you know, now it's coming from the standpoint of the consumer lens. So BV, when you were writing your chapter, I've read your chapter, and it's really about kind of what's all entails. It's not just the mortgage. Like,
Yeah.
what did that spark your thought for that?
Well, you know, our work together at FinLocker, we've really focused our energy on getting people ready to buy a home and get a loan. And what struck me as when I was asked to write a chapter, first of all, I haven't originated a loan in decades, and so you know there are people that are in the weeds doing that work every day that are far more skilled and educated on kind of the modern, you know, loan origination process, if you will. And so what I suggested was I think there's a gap in knowledge for home buyers on what happens after I get my keys, you know? And so, you know, and it was, part of it was like, you know, watching two of my kids buy homes and then, you know, have stuff happen after you own a home. You got to replace a furnace or your dish, whatever, you know, the stuff that you don't budget for. And so I really wanted to focus on the total financial impact after you own a home that includes your mortgage and your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes, which are all typically part of the getting a loan process. But people don't think about, you know, if you buy a single family home with a yard, you either have to buy a lawnmower or you got to hire a lawn service. And if you live in a climate like Michigan, you also got to think about the seasonality of, you know, moving snow. Well, so there's other things that factor into owning a home. And, you know, if you're buying a home and you don't have a family and you're starting a family, then you've got other, you know, things you have to think about down the road. So it was really trying to paint the picture for that early journey home buyer, that to have them visualize what life's going to look like after I own a home and have a mortgage. What else should I be preparing for? Because it's not too early to think about, you know, having a separate budget and savings account for, you know, kind of the home maintenance stuff that happens.
So would you say, like, I've asked this question to both of you guys, but what do you think that is the first time home buyers, like if you had to pick one thing that they get wrong in terms of like what they think they know leading up to the transaction versus what is actual reality?
I'm going first because Brian knows way more about this whole thing than me, so I'm not letting him steal my thing. Chris, it's that they think they need 20% down to buy a house.
Dang, you got me.
Right. Since I've been in this industry, every home buyer report that comes out, I've been on the road with Brian where he's sharing, you know, the most recent home buyer report, and it's always over 50% of consumers think you need 20% down. And so it's still a major gap in our industry that LOs, brokers, aren't doing a good enough job educating the consumer with what that actually looks like. All right, for our friends, this will be my last one, and then Brian, you can go. But like all of our buddies that are like VA loan heavy, I talk to realtors. Realtors hate the VA loan. They think it's the hardest loan to close. And then you talk to the VA loan specialist, and they're like, it's not the hardest loan to close. It's actually easier to close. And so again, the two people that need to help the consumer are fighting against what is and what isn't. And I think that fighting back and forth, that gap in knowledge, is what's keeping people that probably could buy a home right now from even looking into it because of assumptions they've already made.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed the big one, Kyle, and the down payment's like one aspect of the lack of knowledge and understanding of the average first time home buyer. I would say generally speaking, most first time home buyers who have not yet engaged with a professional, either a realtor or a lender, think they're further away from qualifying than they probably actually are, right?
Yeah.
And then I vowed I wasn't going to say this, but double click into something. When we talk about the lack of education, part of this is really traditionally most loan officers have waited until a consumer raised their hand and said, I'm ready to buy. And that action of raising their hand typically came through a referral from an agent, right? Traditionally, most home buyers have started with an agent and then were referred to a lender, which is completely backwards, frankly.
Yep.
It's just backwards. You don't retire first and then have a plan for living during retirement, right? You plan and then you retire. It's the same thing it should be the same way for buying a home, which is the beauty of the FinLocker product. It is a tool to actually help somebody for that 6, 12, 18, 36 months before they're thinking about buying a home. So the traditional loan officer hasn't done anything wrong other than they haven't put themselves out there to their community that's not yet ready. And that's where, that was what was so that's what drew me into Kyle's, Rethink Everything You Know About Social Media book, was that this is the blueprint for what every consumer facing salesperson, forget the industry, across all industries, should be thinking about is, how do I show up? How do I build credibility, build trust at scale, but at a hyper local level, all at the same time? And showing up on social, showing up on video is a strategy, a component of a strategy to do that. And I think loan officers are starting to gravitate to that. Certainly, you've got First Home IQ, Kristen Messerly and that team that have armed loan officers with more up funnel education content, tools like FinLocker, et cetera, that give you something of value as a loan officer to go out and find reasons to be in front of people for 6, 12, 18, 36 months as they're preparing. I think if we do this podcast like in 3 years, we'll be able to point to a different reality. I think they're definitely at that, we're going to see more consumers intentionally engaging with loan officers before they're ready to click, the point of sale online application.
Yeah. So kind of furthering that, because I agree with you, and I really hope we do see that in a few years, and I'm a big proponent of that. But let's just talk about that person. It comes in a referral. They think they're ready to transact. We get a home buyer that comes in. If it's called a first time home buyer, comes in, they can technically get approved, but as a loan officer, they're peeking behind the curtains. They're seeing a lot of what's going on, and if that loan officer starts to think like, yeah, we can get them approved, but there's likelihood they're going to get themselves in trouble. What would you give advice to on the loan officer? Because obviously, if they go what we probably all collectively would think was the right path of some advice, they're going to lose the transaction at hand. But I'm not going to say my opinion yet, but I think there is some ways you can use that in the positive to build trust and brand. So I'll open that up for either one of you, whoever wants to go first.
You want to take it first?
Sure.
You want me to get it?
I mean, I've got something, but
Go. Yeah, go.
So a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Ryan Grant, right? Ryan is a proponent of this title of mortgage advisor, right? And if you study and you listen to Ryan and you're in the room with him and you're watching his videos, Ryan, his belief is that the relationship actually starts at the mortgage closing, and it's the beginning of a 30-year business relationship, an advisor relationship centered around the home, the asset, and the net equity, right? And so if you have the mindset that this is a 30-year relationship that is actually beginning with the closing of that first mortgage, then I do think you take a completely different approach as you're helping somebody prepare for the transaction at hand, right? Because there's going to be transactions that occur, but what you're trying to establish is an advisory relationship, so that just like, consumers have a financial advisor, they don't go shop every time they're going to make an investment. They have an advisor and a relationship that handles that, and that should be the same for their home financing. And so, what Ryan would tell you, and I've seen this in practical terms, and I'm a believer in this, is that you may have to tell somebody that's otherwise qualified today that this isn't the best thing for you based on what you've described as your 20-year goals. This doesn't align because of X, Y, or Z. And, there's a lot of loan officers, sadly, and these are the loan officers, I think, that do such low volume that there's a desperation kind of attached, and they may go against what otherwise is the best advice for the sake of a commission, but they're not going to get any deals after that. if they truly have, if someone's now in a worse position financially than they were prior. So I think that's my advice is, if you're watching this and you don't know Ryan Grant, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows Ryan, go follow him, subscribe to his advice, but, think of this as a 30-year commitment and relationship with these consumers.
Yeah, and I would give similar advice, but from a different perspective. I know for me, right, I'm over sales for my companies, and so I'm in that conversation constantly, but I also hold my character and integrity above anything else. And so one of the things that I love to tell loan officers is, if you're never saying no, you're not doing right by the client, because there is no way that every single person is destined to be a homeowner today. And even though you could, come up with every objection and you could finagle your way into a loan product, that's not always the right answer for people. And so one of my personal litmus tests is, how often am I telling people, you're not ready for this? And that's not the end. Like, we're going to create a path to get them ready. But I think more loan officers need to learn to say no more often, or at least not yet, right? Yeah. No feels very definitive, but at least say not yet, but then stay with that person. Because here's what blows my mind. How many referrals could you get because you said not yet to somebody? They now trust you more. And if it takes 12 months for them to get ready, how many referrals could you have gotten from those people in those 12 months? Because they went, oh my gosh, I can't believe you convinced me not to do it. Yeah. You talked me out of the decision that would have made you money. And the short-sightedness in our industry is just crazy, because I think that's ultimately going to win you way more business than just trying to treat every opportunity as a yes.
That's where my head's at too. I mean, we've done a lot of, Brian knows this, but we've done a lot of consumer testing at FinLocker, and there's a fear of getting judged. Can I do this? And so even though it is hard to say, hey, even though you can prove it might not be a good idea right now, that you are building that trust right away. And Kyle, I guess maybe this is back to you, is I would think you could take, you're a master building the brand, your own personal brand. So I think you could take some of that content and start speaking to whether it's social or wherever about, I'm only doing this as right for my clients.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you had somebody that their credit score was just under where it needed to be to get locked into a better loan product? And so you told them not yet, you gave them a clear path to getting there. And then you turn around and you make content out of that, and you go, hey, if your credit score is under 600, right? Let me talk to you for a minute. And then you give that person advice on what the next step is they should take. That person is going to be reaching out to you in the future. But again, we're just so short-sighted. It's all about, who can I close today? Yep. Instead of, who can I love on, nurture, and serve today that will be a never-ending referral opportunity because of the way I honestly and with integrity handled them and cared for them. And when you look at the Ryan Grants of the world, the Megs and the Gemmas that wrote the Homebuyer book, that led the book, this is how they talk to people. And this is why they're in the top 1% of originators, because the best of the best get this. They don't say yes to everybody, but it's the rest of the industry that does.
It's not the easiest path forward, right? Because you just close the loan, but you got to, if you sacrifice a little bit for the better of the client, then like you said, Kyle, there's referrals, different, just the trust factor. Your name starts getting known in a different light. BB, going a little bit further on the chapter that you wrote, I'm on a lot of first-time homebuyer forums. I just like to know, like, what, I'm going to call it the buyer's remorse. People that have closed and and a lot of the themes I'm thinking of, like, one of the big themes is the taxes jumped. The taxes jumped. They don't know about the prorated taxes. We talk about escrow accounts. And so when you start combining utilities, HOA, all that stuff, in all your experience in talking with loan officers, how do you think is the best ways to simplify the explanation to that consumer without overwhelming them?
Yeah, I think this is why, and I preach this. This is why a local loan originator is bar none the single best resource for first-time homebuyers, right?
Yeah.
And so, in local, I'll put it in air quotes, because you could be local based on your knowledge, how much research you've done on a community, or you can be local based on your physical presence in that community. They both apply. And so I think, as a loan officer, knowing that a pain point for consumers post close is any change in their payment that goes up, that's a problem. And so I would, as a loan officer, if I'm focusing on a certain zip code or multiple zip codes, I would understand to the nth degree what's going on in that community from a tax perspective, a property tax perspective. Is the trend plus, 2.5% per year? What's going on that I can educate my consumers, my clients, my prospects on, because that's a differentiator. That not every nugget of knowledge and education you pour into a prospect goes into their evaluation. And at some point, if they're quote unquote shopping you, meaning somebody else came into their life and has got a lower rate, and that lower rate's like a quarter lower, if you've poured enough value into that relationship and value in the form of education and preparation, that quarter point's not going to be enough to sway that consumer to go somewhere else and start over again with someone they don't know, like, or trust. So I think, just as advice to the LOs is be hyper local. And again, it could be physical, it could be, digital, but understand the markets you're serving and be that best resource for that community.
So I love that. So Kyle, a loan officer gets this book. What are some actionable items they can take away from them, take it and use it with their clients?
Oh, I would steal every page from this book to go make your own content. Right? This book is a content machine written by dozens of experts from around the country that probably are smarter than you. So go steal their brilliance. They're not trying to come after your people. They have their own people in their marketplace. And so, like, what I don't want is for the loan officer to read this book and be like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. I wish I would have. Like, get rid of this woe is me stuff. Go take it, internalize it, and then go regurgitate it on your people, and they're not going to know where it came from. So that's the thing for me is you want to get good at something, go prepare to teach it, not just take it in. Because I learn so much more about the subject matter I'm teaching when I prepare to teach it, not just when I want to learn it.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the key to this book.
Yeah, and shout out FinLocker. They're within their the customer success marketing group. They're creating content using the chapters in this book. And
I'll a selfish plug here, but yeah, for FinLocker, we have, as for those loan officers listening to our clients, you guys know that we have all of these chat GPT channels that we've built and trained, and some of that material is coming directly from the Rethink books, and this one will be no exception.
That's awesome.
So I know we're getting close on time, but I do want to just ask, because this Rethink, I'm going to go back to the theme of this Rethink thing is just taken off, and it's awesome to see. So Kyle, to you, what's next with Rethink? What are we rethinking next? If you can share.
Man, we've got Rethink Everything You Know About Business Planning that just came out. Michelle Castle, who a lot of people know, wrote that book. She's been a top 1% originator for like 100 years in the mortgage industry.
She wrote a chapter.
She wrote a chapter in the Green Book, and we've got Rethink Everything You Know About Mentorship that is going live in the next day or so. As we're recording this, we've got Rethink Everything You Know About Craft Beer coming out in March, which I am fascinated to see how that goes. We've got Rethink Everything You Know About Jesus coming out this summer that I've partnered with my church, and we're taking a sermon series from the church and using AI to take the transcripts from the sermons and write them into chapters. And so that's going to be cool. We got an AI book coming, and we'll do this publicly on the podcast, but Brian is still technically on the hook to do Rethink Everything You Know About LinkedIn. And he has he chose to like go get a big CEO job, and he doesn't pay attention to the little people anymore over here that need his LinkedIn brilliance. So I think that book can come out before the year's over. And we've got Green Book Part 2 that Brian and I are going to start putting a team together for, so that hopefully before the end of the year, we'll have a second Green Book come out.
Okay.
There we go.
I guess when's the LinkedIn stuff going, Brian?
Yeah. It's a very fluid process. We'll just say that.
All right. Well, guys, I really appreciate it. I won't keep you too much longer here, but any last comments, any words of wisdom for the loan officers listening to this, for lenders?
For loan officers, it's the same thing that I say, be visible, show up, and be the best resource for your community. That's the strategy that will win in every market.
I would say stop assuming, right? We know the saying, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Mm-hmm. And I think all these loan officers, they assume the buyer already knows. Oh, they know what earnest money is. Oh, they know that there's tons of different loan products available to them that they don't know, right? They don't deal with this every day the way you do. And so assume that they know nothing and go work your butt off to educate the heck out of them and watch what it does for your business.
It's fun, just on that. I was talking with a good buddy of mine. He had bought a home in New York like a decade plus ago, and he's a smart guy. He's a CEO of a small tech company, and he even called just like, what some of this stuff is just like it's foreign, and I can go spend the time to investigate all of it, but his one is phoning a friend. And so I think if loan officers take more of that aspect of, if it's just one of your friends that has nothing to do with the mortgage business, how do you talk about it?
Love that.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, happy Friday. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate the time, and we'll just keep looking out for all this Rethink stuff.
Love it. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.